pertain to employee welfare. Those are what we need to be able to, our people need to be able to function, and they don't think about it too much until it breaks down. So from an HR, those are some of the silent running things of HR. So from an employee welfare and an employee benefits point of view, we need to make sure that those continue to run and run well. So I call that the silent running part of HR. Sometimes we end up spending a lot of time in those areas if it's not fixed, if we don't have proper systems, if our technology is not right, to make sure that those run well. But as CEOs, they don't want those to be distractions to what employees need to be doing. They don't need to know that employees are worrying about, well, I put in a medical claim and it's taking too long to come, or I'm sitting in a hot office where the fan is broken. And those are the things that could be distractions. We want to eliminate those, all right? The second thing that our CEOs expect is that that our business is compliant, and that what we do, okay, I'm sorry, Nigel is hearing me garbled. Not too sure if it's on your end, Nigel, but I will continue to talk and continue. So in terms of compliance, we are expected as HR professionals, thanks Meighan, to make sure that what we do is in compliance with all the regulatory framework. So our labor laws, our practices, they all need to be very much in line with what our countries that we operate in. So those are things that we need to make sure get done. That's expected. The third thing on the tacticians at HR that our CEOs expect of us is to make things simple. Now, I'll pause on this one because in the HR world, because of how we think and we see so much across all the departments, there are times when we see the problem and we see multiple solutions and things become complicated. Our CEOs are very much interested in how can we break things down? How can you, as the HR professional, get to the solution in a simple way, or encourage that? So one of the things I know I've been told is from my CEO, he'd be like, I don't want any HR speak. Tell me in simple language, what do you mean? What's going on? So when you might hear somebody say, okay, we want to onboard this person or we want to offboard this person, some of the HR language that really and truly we could break down and make a lot simpler for our CEOs. And even for our employees. From the point of view of employees, and need to know that business is running and that, yes, we are tackling some of those more complex issues, but in a simpler way. Okay? So in terms of the tactician, we need to be distraction eliminators, we need to ensure compliance, and we need to make things simple. If I had to put up a sign, I would say, speak no HR. So that would mean when you're talking to your CEO, just speak in plain, simple language for them to understand, because that makes it a lot easier. So that's a tactician. So that is the first thing that we want to focus on. Remember, I said it's TSP, tactician, strategist, and partner. So let's talk a little bit about the strategist. And I like to give a little quote here, which talks about a disconnected relationship between the Chief Human Resource Officer and the CEO is a common point of pain and can easily derail an otherwise promising HR career. And that's a quote from Marsha Finney, who is a HR blogger. So a disconnected relationship between the CHRO and the CEO is a common point of pain and can easily derail an otherwise promising career. So for us as HR professionals, a big part of what we have to be is strategic. We've heard this before. The CEO, by his or her very nature, is a strategist. That's what CEOs have to do. They are not focused on the right in front, but they're focused on the short and long term for the company. Most CEOs don't operate in the present. So they would expect that their HR persons also are not operating in the present. Now, if we flip back to the tactician side, as a HR person, if from a tactician, that's your everything running smoothly, your day-to-day. You should have that covered, and that's usually an area where we're good. So if we look at the strategists, CEOs want to understand that you have your business acumen up to par. And I mean, we've heard this before, but the thing about it is how well are we doing it? So in terms of business acumen, what are the major figures, numbers, the things that your business does and does well? What are the metrics that are important to your business? I work on an ammonia plant. You're not really going to see it. I'm at the office today. But I'm working on an ammonia plant and an ammonia complex. We do urea and we do ammonia. So every day I get the production figures, so I know what's happening on the plant. In terms of understanding what's happening with our exports of ammonia, I also need to know what's going on there. Because if I give you an example, the fact that COVID happened, the fact that globally the industry was importing less ammonia, that has affected our business, okay? So I had to be on the ball with that, looking at those figures and understanding that, listen to me, at the end of the day, the fact that our ammonia prices are down means that our business could be impacted. How will that be? How soon will that be? What is going to be the impact on our human resource numbers? Does that mean that there'll be a hiring freeze? Does that mean that we will no longer be able to pay a bonus? Those are the types of things that we have to be thinking about and talking with our CEOs on it. In terms of metrics, turnover, those things are important, yes, but I would challenge HR professionals, when you're liaising with the CEO, he or she is more interested in that you understand the metrics of the business. We know you will understand the metrics of HR. So some of the other things that my slide points out is that we need to think long term. I am constantly thinking, where's my business going to be? So I'm an ammonia complex. Where's my business going to be in 3 years? Where's it going to be in 5 years? Are we going to be around? Do we have the staffing to take us where we want to go? Do we have, and my other point underneath thinking long term is developing people. Do I have the right type of people to take us down into 3 to 5 years from now? Who do I need to bring in now, and what do I need to do to develop them to get them to where they want to be? What's my 1-year plan for this group of persons? What's my 3-year plan? Those are some of the things that the CEOs want to know that we are working on. And remember, the CEO sees the whole business, but he or she expects that when it comes to the people side of the business, that he or she will be brought into the loop. So we need to be able to bring those ideas to the table so that they can be acted on. The last thing on my slide under strategists talks about HR KPIs linked to the company's goals. So if I had to reword that last bullet point, I would say HR needs to know what keeps the CEO up at night. So the company's goals often keep the CEO up at night. What are the things that are bothering he or she about the business and about some of the numbers and the goals and the objectives that the company has had or may not be making, or maybe slow in making? At the start of the year, I sit with my CEO and I say, okay, so I go to him and I say, these are some of the ideas that I'm thinking, but you tell me what's keeping you up at night. What are the things that are really bothering you? Just tell me. I'm not interested in whether they're the people things. Just tell me what are the things that are bothering you. So we sit and we have that conversation. And what I did this year is I actually went to him, no slate. I didn't have anything in mind. I went in with nothing. I said, I just want to talk to you. You need just download on me. And he sat and he shared all the things that were on his mind, a real bother for him. I happen to have a male CEO. And what I did from that is I went back and I spent a week or so, a week or two, really just about a week, going through, okay, what are these things and how can HR impact these things? And that's where the strategic part comes in. What are these things? Which of these things that bother him can I impact in my team? Can my team impact? So it's really being strategic and looking at the long term. Okay, so that's the T, that's the S. So we talked about the tactician, which I said we really do well, the silent running, the strategist, which is the business acumen, the thinking long term, the developing people. Let's talk about the third expectation of the CEO from HR, which is the partner. And if we can just switch to the partner slide. And once again, you know, I really like this quote that we got from Martha Finney. It really speaks to the relationship. If your relationship with your CEO is disconnected, then you're going to be in some pain as an HR professional. And of course, the business will not survive as well as it should. So in terms of partner, the HR professional needs to have a strong relationship with the CEO. All right. And when we say strong, what does that mean? Okay. That means that you and your CEO have to have a relationship where you can feel free to share, unfiltered, and he or she should also feel the same. It's a non-judgmental relationship. It's a relationship that is based on, this is what I think is best for the business. This is where I think the business needs to go. This is where I think you can help. This is where I think I need to see more HR involvement. So that relationship, I mean, for me, I know I've had I changed CEOs in the last 3 years that I've been in this company. And I started my first CEO, the relationship, I was new, and his style was a little more formal, but yet we had an excellent relationship. He was able to say, this is what I want to see. This is what's bothering me. This is what I feel is going on. This is what I want to do. I'm very defined and I'm sure about what I want to do. My new CEO, relationship a little bit different. He is a big picture, a visionary type of person, knows what he wants, not always too sure how he wants to get there. So I have had to spend a little more time. We as opposed to my first relationship with the CEO, we didn't have scheduled meetings as rigid as I have with my new CEO. And I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, I set up my meetings with him. Sometimes we don't always need them. Sometimes we do, but it's in the calendar. He knows every 2 weeks we are sitting and having a deep conversation. We're spending a solid hour one-on-one together. And that's because that's part of the relationship. I might drink a cup of tea with him, silly little things like that. Talk about, he's a sweet tooth, so we talk about biscuits, something light, and then we will get into our serious business. But all that's relationship building. To be a partner with somebody, you have to have that relationship. You have to know what are the things that the person likes, and it's all about making sure that you hit those spots in developing a relationship. For an HR person, because we are the ones that know the secrets of the organization, and the other departments, other executives don't always know, they can't know. There's a lot of expectations on the secrecy and the confidentiality of HR. We are the sounding board. HR has to be a trusted sounding board. And when I think about a sounding board, you really have to be the person that's willing to hear even the not so nice things. You know, you have to be willing to be open to listen to your CEO, and don't filter your CEO. Have him or her say what they need to say, and then you can guide them in a particular way of thinking, or show them where I understand you, but here's what you may not have thought of, or here's what they're saying. You need to be very courageous in this role as partner, because there are things that nobody else will say. There are times when I've sat in our exec room and things are happening, and a CEO may be off on a particular slant, and I can tell that people are afraid. They're afraid to speak up and say, well, no, we need to be the person who tells the emperor that he has no clothes. That has to happen. You have to, as an HR person, you have to be very confident that this is not going to cost you a job, because this is your job. This is part of your job. I always laugh because good HR persons are hard to fire because we know all the secrets, and we know we're least likely to be the person that would be mistreated. So it's something that we have to really build on. So at the end of the day, we need to be willing to give the feedback. We need to be willing to give the guidance and the counseling, and even a bit of coaching. You may feel like you shouldn't be coaching your CEO, but if you have a good relationship, he or she expects this of you. So the TSP, it's the tactician, the strategist, and partner. That's the role of HR with the CEO. So I know that we have about 1 more minute. Well, we probably are out of time, but I am finished. It's really a drive-by that I've done there. So Charlene, I will hand over to you.
I love the drive-by, Nicholette. The drive-by that was very informative. I mean, so much takeaways, Nicholette. So grateful you squeezed in the time to join us this morning. Love your little acronym. What stood out for me was when you started that we should be the distraction eliminator. The little things, the little stone in our people's shoe, we should be able to take out those little stones before they feel it. Yeah. Our work environment, welfare. So that's one really takeaway that I got. The other was the speak no HR sign you want to put on your door. Make it simple. People, us HR people, like to talk, as you say, about these grand ideas and our language, but remembering that we should really speak the language of our audience so that we could truly communicate the value we're offering. And then, of course, the highlight, again, is those KPIs. How many of us as HR professionals have those conversations with our CEO to find out really what is keeping him or her up at night. I mean, that's an approach that I take with my clients. And it's not about just HR, because HR must support the entire organization. So if you have not been looking at the financials of the organization, you have not been looking at the products, the services being delivered at the organization, you cannot fully support the organization. So Nicholette, thank you so much. Overly grateful, and you have been very gracious with your knowledge, so thank you. Give me some feedback. Give me some feedback, please. I'm seeing 2 cameras on Charlene and feedback. Not sure what. But I want some feedback in the chat of what you thought about Nicholette session. I usually tell people, show us some love, please. Yeah, show us some love, please. Yes, quite concise and clear. So I thank you so much, Nicholette. What we're going to do now, our next segment, as much as I made it seem as this big fancy segment, we're going to give away a prize. So, and oh, Meighan say it was incredible. It was. Thank you so much. Randy, I'm so glad you made it. So Dion, do we have our picture for our exercise for our prize? Yes, Shaun, it was a simple concept, that TSP, very simple and direct. Yep. Okay, Dion, let's put on our first, let's crack the code. Folks, are you ready to crack the code? Nicholette, if you want to join the others and come off stage, you're free to do so. Just take off your camera and mic and you will be off. So folks, we are going to crack a code this morning. So we like to put these little things in between our sessions so that we move from one side of the brain to the other, give you an opportunity to win something nice, like a Christmas box. I'll tell you more about that a bit later. So here it is. So you have to crack this code. You could just tap on the image to enlarge it. The first person with the answer in the chat, we have a Christmas box with some pastel, Christmas cookies, and some other goody stuff from Alexandra, the cafe, that will be the prize, will be going for grabs this morning. So the first person to crack that code, you just put the answer in the chat. Once it's correct, that Christmas box will be yours. So let's go now. Let's go. Crack the code. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I suppose you're still calculating. And I confess, I got it. So I didn't crack the code. My daughter did. Come on, who's going with that breakfast box this morning? Dion, what else is in the breakfast box? All I remember is pastel. Oh, somebody came up with an answer, but that's not what I got here. Sorry, Amanda. Let's go again, Amanda. You still have time. Let's go. Crack the code, people. Come on. So the box has a pastel, cupcake. Oh, Hyacinth, let's go again. Let's go again. I'll give you a hint. The first number is 0. The first number is 0. Dion, what else is in that box? All I remember is pastel, and a black cake, cupcake or so, sugar cookies. Yeah. So we're supporting Alexandra the Cafe, one of those small businesses. Oh, Shaun, you're almost there. One number is not correct. That's 6, Shaun. Shaun, you're almost there. Right, we're getting a mini fruit cake in your Christmas box, sugar cookies, all homemade by this fantastic cafe. Shaun, you shifted, you were closer. Ah, pause. Joel, you got it. Joel, I find you're winning a lot of things when you come here. Joel, you got it. Joel. We have a winner. Joel 042. Now, this has not been rigged there, but Joel keeps winning prizes every time he comes here. He won our competition on Facebook last May to get on a free seat. So, Joel, congratulations. Got to bring out my celebration. Congratulations, Joel. As I said, this Christmas box is our way of supporting. Oh, dear Nazrin is telling us what's in the Christmas box. This is our way of supporting Alexandra the Cafe. They're located in St. Augustine on the main road between Kirab Junction and the traffic light by Massey Stores. And because of COVID, they have closed their doors. And we used to go there as a team to have breakfast, our breakfast meetings. So we really wanted to support. So we have purchased some boxes as prizes. And we also want to encourage you to support the cafe by purchasing their boxes. They also, this is what they will be having, Christmas boxes. So I encourage you to support Alexandra the Cafe. So Joelle, you will have your Christmas box coming up to you pretty soon, definitely before Christmas. All righty, folks. So thank you so much. And thanks, Nicholette, so much for your contribution today. I know Nicholette has to hop off, so I thank you so much, Nicholette. So we move on again. And now I really wanted to introduce, the world is so strange. I want to introduce someone that I met online. And somehow I was drawn, I keep being drawn to these organizations that are making a fantastic impact on their employees and their fence line environment, and just the kind of culture the organization has been able to engender and to build. So I was particularly drawn to this individual online. And she is from the Inspirant group, that's Meighan Newhouse. And I'm so happy because we have COVID, I'm able to have Meighan here. So this is one of the pluses of COVID. I am able to have who got up earlier, but probably not earlier, but had an early appointment with us this morning because we're 2 hours. So Meighan, I welcome you totally. I am so excited and happy that we are able to have you here virtually. So Meighan, I should just say briefly, Meighan was the Chief People Officer at Inspirant, and a young consulting company firm who's really doing things their way. They don't call their consultants consultants, they call them unconsultants. You know, a lot of things happening with that group and really moving forward. They won the best small company to work in their area. So we are really privileged to have Meighan with us. Meighan, I'm going to say, take it away, Meighan. Or I should say, Meighan is now the CEO of Inspirant Group. So take it away, Meighan. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Charlene, and good morning, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be with you in Trinidad and Tobago. I wish I were actually there live and in person, but I am in the suburbs of Chicago in the US. And as Charlene said, it was such a joy to meet with her online. I don't know if you've had any of these connections yourself, but I've made friends all around the world during this time. And Charlene, thank you so much for having me this morning, and thank you all. And I love seeing the activity in the chat. I hope you all are safe and healthy and taking care of yourselves and your family during this time as well. And before I tell you a little bit about myself and Inspirant Group, I really do want this to be more of a conversation. So it's our conversations over coffee, yeah. And I encourage you in the chat, what I would really like to have happen is if you could share with me your biggest question or challenge regarding our topic this morning. So I have it up over here, engagement or entanglement with CEO and HR. And Charlene, just so you know, I still see you on the screen. You're welcome to stay with me, but we did have two Charlenes for a while there, which was twice the fun. But I don't know if there's, if you want to make sure that you take that off. Okay, great. Good morning. So in the chat, please, if you could, as I tell you just a little bit more about myself, Charlene did a wonderful job introducing me this morning, but just let me know, what are you hoping to hear about this session today? Nicholette kicked it off in an incredible fashion, and I am so grateful. I wish she were still here so I could thank her for that. She really set up a lot of what I was going to try to drive home with you all today. So I hope you are taking furious notes about her TSP concept. So please, in the chat, let me know what you would like to hear about this morning, what I can share with you about my experience. As Charlene mentioned, I do have, I would say, a unique experience. I am one of the co-founders of Inspirant Group. We are a management consulting firm based in the Chicagoland area in the US. And we focus on business transformation. So we help with process transformation, technology transformation, and people transformation. And what I mean by that, that's actually my side of the house. I've spent years as an instructional designer and trainer. And what we help with is change management, and we help with leadership development and emerging leaders and executive coaching, and making sure that leaders are really focused on making their team the best they can be and helping people to reach their potential. And so as a co-founder of Inspirant, we really started the company as a people-first organization. And that means that we're creating a place where people want to come to work and are excited about the work that they're doing, that they feel, it says our conversations are closing. I hope not. We're just getting started, friends. I have to apologize. So you all should know that I spent a good part of my early career in IT. So I was an instructional designer, and I created training programs, and I almost always broke the technology. So I'm just going to say that was my fault. So I apologize for that. But, or, you get up and try to train something, and you're like, oh, that button was there yesterday. Where did it go? So it's so nice to be back with all of you. And I hope you got a little bit of coffee in your break there. And don't you just love Charlene? We'll give her some claps over in the chat there. I wanted to thank Nigel and Nashrun. I had a couple of comments I was looking at for what you were hoping to get out of the session today. Nigel, you nailed it, right? People are the key to performance. I was actually just thinking this morning that companies are not successful. It's the people within the companies that are really successful, and therefore the companies are able to succeed. And I'm thinking about this time. I mean, I don't know how many of you were able to predict what 2020 was going to bring us. I sure wasn't. I actually, at the start of 2020, was really excited. I'm always very excited about a new year, fresh start, new things to do, new challenges. And for me, this was extra exciting because it was a new decade. At the time at Inspirant, as I was mentioning, as we were getting started, I was still the chief people officer at that time. And in my role as the chief people officer, I really saw myself as the champion and the curator of Inspirant Group's culture. So it was up to me to make sure that the culture was the place that really epitomized what a people-first company is. And I was excited about the new decade, 2020. If you were, let me know in the chat if you felt the same way. And then lo and behold, just a couple months in, the world completely changed beneath us. And, I'm thinking that if organizations are not realizing the humanity of business at this time, I really don't know what is going to have them think that. What else will have that effect on them? If a global pandemic will not cause you to step back and look at the humanity of your business, I'm not sure what will. And really, the humanity of a business lies in its human resources professionals, doesn't it? You really are the heart of the organization, and an enlightened CEO will see that and will see you as that strategic partner. I just loved how Nicholette was talking about that, her model, that TSP model. That's really something. Write that down, print it out, frame it, put it by your desk, because that's exactly right. I mean, that is exactly the way that we should be partnering together in organizations. So I think I come from a unique perspective because I spent, a handful of years as a chief people officer, as I like to call myself, the HR lady, with our organization. And I recently moved into the CEO role. So I'm able to see both sides of what that relationship is supposed to look like. And Nicholette could not have explained it better. It really is a strategic partner, is the way I see it. And I think about this, I've done a lot of work in training with communication in organizations, because that's really the fundamental skill set that we need in order to understand what we're trying to do. And let me know in the chat if you're familiar with any of these communication assessments. One that we really like to use in our organization is called DISC, D-I-S-C. If you're familiar with DISC, just give me a little thumbs up or a smiley face in the chat over there. Great, Nicole. Thank you, Nashrin. Yes. The reason we like DISC so much is it's really, I think it's just really easy to understand, isn't it? And it's not intended to stereotype or put people in boxes, but really it's a tool for communication. And the way I like to talk about it is it's like a secret superpower. Once you understand how people communicate and how they best receive information, well, can't you just get your message across that much better and that much easier? So, it's on us as the communicator to ensure that our message is best being received by the person on the other side. So I think about that on both sides of the coin, as the CEO and the CHRO, or the chief people officer, the head of HR, or any of you really working on either side. If you're in the office of the CEO, or if you're in the function of human resources, how can we best communicate with each other? And it's really, as an HR individual, I think it's understanding, as Nicholette alluded to, the needs of the business and the needs of your stakeholders. So really, step back and think about who your stakeholders really are and what will best serve them in your role. And then figure out how to best communicate your expertise, because you really are the expert and the heart of the organization. That's right, Nicole. Oh, Nashrin, show up with heart, mind, and soul. Absolutely. Oh, I couldn't agree with that more. There's a word in Japanese, and I don't know what it is, but there's a word in Japanese that actually means heart, mind, and soul together. In English, we don't have a word like that. Business, I feel like we've just been working with the mind. And as I'm saying, 2020, if that hasn't shown you, you really need to work with the mind and the heart and the soul, I don't know what will. So understanding how to best communicate with each other, how to best, yes, Francis, that's it. Kokoro, you got it. Thank you. best understanding how to communicate that, and helping, maybe your CEO isn't always people first. I don't imagine that my path is a traditional path. I don't know how many CEOs have come from being in HR. So they might need your guidance, your expertise on really understanding that the company wouldn't succeed if the people aren't successful, if you don't have the right people in the right seat. And that's how Charlene started all of this off with us today, isn't it? Is having the right people at your organization that fit in the culture, having them in their right seat, which means that they're doing the jobs that they're good at, that they are passionate about. You're going to get the best out of the people when you're doing that with them. And in order to best do that, you really have to be that strategic partner. You have to understand what the business needs. You have to understand what the CEO needs and communicate in the best fashion. And you can come with facts and figures. There are facts and figures around employee engagement and how to best achieve that. There are facts and figures around the damage of employee disengagement. So when employees are actively disengaged, the damage they're going to cause the organization and therefore the bottom line. And as a CEO, if you're showing up saying you're losing money because the people aren't engaged, I think they're going to sit up and listen to that. So do your homework, come prepared to the conversations, and have courage. Use that soul, use that heart, mind, and soul to really approach the conversations with your stakeholders. And I'm talking about the CEO because that's our conversation today, but really you likely have many stakeholders within your organizations, and you'll have to get to know them and understand what each one of them needs and how to best communicate that. So if you're familiar with DISC or any of those different styles, use that to your advantage and figure out, okay, I'm going to go talk to this person. What do they need from me? How can I best serve them? How can I best get my message across so that they understand me? And don't let no be the end of it either. Don't give up. Have courage. If you know what's right for the people at your organization, if you want to keep that talent that you worked so hard to get in the door, you know what's best for them. So don't give up and continue to have that conversation until you get the answer that you need. So I'm talking to the HR folks. Let me hold on. Let me switch hats real quick. Okay. CEOs. I firmly believe that a successful organization has a three-legged stool at the top, and it's the CEO, it's the CHRO, or the head of people, and it's the COO, the head of operations. So you've got strategy, you've got operations, which includes finance. I didn't mention the CFO. Sorry if there's any of you on the call. You guys are very important. I roll you up into the operations. I do not roll HR up into the operations, though. We are a function, but we're more than that. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, what is a company without its people? And it's so funny. I've been in this career for almost 20 years. And we've been talking about getting a seat at the table for so long on the HR side. And I am saying, as a CEO and to my fellow CEOs out there, one of your first hires, or if you don't have someone in this role right now, should be a head of HR, and they should be your right hand. I firmly believe that. Or part of that three-legged stool that I just mentioned, right? You probably have your COO that you need as well. But that's the most important part of your organization. If you don't have somebody championing for your people, finding the right people, finding out what the people need, ensuring, right? I mean, think about how much time you spend recruiting the talent, and then you bring the talent in. And if you don't give them that engaging experience from day one, they're not going to stay. They won't stay, and they won't feel that connection to the culture. And I do believe you can create that connection virtually. I hope you feel connected to me right now. I feel connected to all of you. As Charlene mentioned, we're friends, and gosh, we live thousands of miles away. We're separated by an ocean, but we made that connection virtually. I think you can do that effectively. Yes, not sure. If you don't have a seat at the table, you're part of the menu. Give me 1 second because I can't multitask. So I do want to take a moment to look at the chat. If you have anything that you want me to comment on in there, please let me know. Yes. Okay, good. I'm back up to the Vanna White comment. So it's the top of it. Gabrielle, I'm looking at yours right now. Oh, I love that. Good. Oh, good. Feeling the connection. Good. Gosh, Gabrielle, you bring up such an interesting conversation here. So folks, if you didn't see that, I'm just gonna read it to you here. So the emphasis has been on the interaction between HR and CEO, but the concern comes from when HR hijacks, for lack of a better term, no worries, the company and filters information that goes to the CEO, down to directing the CEO if a response should be given if direct communication is attempted with the CEO. It creates a situation where the CEO is untouchable or unreachable. So if you're a member within the HR team, so it sounds like, if I understand correctly, is that maybe the head of HR is creating this barrier between really what's happening and what's getting shared with the CEO, if I understand that correctly. Great, thanks, Gabrielle. Thanks for confirming that. I mean, that sounds toxic, and that's not a great answer, and I'm sorry for that. That is challenging. I would say, really, as a good CEO, as a good leader, his or her job is to ensure that they have the right people sitting at their table. I would say, you know, it's a difficult situation to be in, because if you are in that HR department, it sounds like that would be your boss, your boss's boss, your boss's boss's boss, and you don't want to go around that person and perhaps create some tension there. But I'd say, as I mentioned earlier, have courage and don't take no for an answer. So how can you get your messages across? You know, have the facts, have the information. And, you know, I would hope that CEO, what I would coach that CEO is, please don't be connected from what's actually happening on the front lines, what's actually happening in the people doing the work. You know, that's a recipe for disaster. And that happens so much. We do see that as we're consulting with organizations, that, you know, the executive team, the leadership team really doesn't have much of an idea what's going on down the line. I would say, if you have the courage and you have the facts and the information, you can help to transform that organization from within. It just takes one person. It really does. And that person can be you. So you can start small. You know, keep in mind, you don't want to overthrow, you don't want to create a coup. So start small. You know, what changes can you make within your own team that show success, that show improvement? Small, you know, a little, as we would say in IT, we have a little pilot. We're going to pilot this with a small group. We're going to make sure, see if this works. And then if you do it well, if you're successful, it's going to catch fire. So you've had this little pilot, and then it starts to branch out a little bit, and you'll get the attention of that CEO, and you'll be seen as a trusted advisor. You'll be seen as someone who's creating some buzz within their own group, even if it's just two of you. But things are successful, things are going well. You're saving the company money. You are thinking agilely. You are able to pivot easily when things happen. You're creative and innovative. And, you know, that should make any good CEO sit up and take notice. So I would say, start small and create a little disruption. And also, so a little bit of side advice, befriend that head of HR, right? Start to get in that person's ear with some advice and some guidance. And it's on you as the communicator to figure out the best way to do that. So befriend that person. How, you know, get to know that person. What do they like? How can I really get in there and make a connection with that person? I'm not being devious, I'm being honest, right? Let's make a connection with that person, a genuine connection, and become a trusted advisor. And then group, you're creating a little bit of disruption, good trouble, right? And then it's successful and it creates fire, but then you're also working at the top as well and befriending that head of HR, and then maybe you can get that person's ear as well. Thank you, Charlene. It's about building relationships. Good. Any other questions that you'd like me to cover off during my time with you all this morning? I'm happy to. Good trouble. That's right, Charlene. Sometimes you have to ask for forgiveness and not permission. You didn't hear that from me. So just think about that. You know, think about, you have the tools in your toolkit. You really do, to make those relationships successful and to forge what you need in order to make your company a successful people-first organization. So have the courage to have the conversations. Don't give up when you hear no. If you know that it's right, trust your intuition and move forward. And use your secret superpower of communication in order to get the information across in the way that's best received by the person who's receiving that information. I think that's it for me, Charlene, unless anyone else has some questions. But I just want to thank you all. It was such a pleasure to be with you this morning. Thank you so much for your activity in the chat. I love having conversation, and I think, missing being in person with you all, which I would have loved to have hopped on a plane and come down and see you all live and in person. I think this is a great way to communicate, and I can't thank you enough. I hope you all enjoyed your coffee this morning, and please stay safe and be well, and the happiest of holidays to all of you. Thank you.
Meighan, thank you so much. Let's give Meighan some love. Thank you so much, Meighan. Let's show Meighan some love in the chat. I mean, very good advice, especially I was glad you were able to address the question in the chat, because it seemed to have been a deep burning question for the individual. So that was free advice this morning, okay? No consultancy fees. So thank you so much. And again, what stood out for me is your three leg of the organization, the operations, the CEO and HR, because we really have to work together. And that's what this is about, understanding how to work together. The CEO representing management and HR. And of course, Meighan introduced, so remind us that there are operations, there's the operation department. What I love again that Meighan shared is that communication is critical. We really have to learn to communicate in our audience's world, whoever we are speaking to, so that we can make the connection. Communication is about connection. And I always say also that business, like life, is about relationships. We like to keep our work life in a box. We keep it in a separate box, and then we go home, and that's another box. But we're dealing with people, whether at work, whether at home, the same approach for relationships that we use in our personal relationships, the same approach we need to take with our work relationships. So it's really about building those relationships. So Meighan, I want to thank you so much to reminding us too that we can start small. And that's something I usually remind the people when they have training sessions. People usually say that, my manager needs to be here, my CEO needs to be here to hear this so that they can operate differently. And I usually respond that you have the opportunity to go back now with the information, because they're not privy with it. Go back with the information and light a spark and make a difference right where you are. You don't need a grand revolution. You just need a small revolution within your department with your people. So thank you for reminding us of that. So I'm going to move ahead. We were going to have a little exercise segment here, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move ahead. So I want you all to stretch your arms again and twist and turn so that you can keep the energy going and that you can keep the vibes going. Yes, let's ramp things up. I like that, Nashru. So I'm going with that. We are going to ramp things up right now because I am super, super excited to bring on the stage Shaun Rampersad of Ramps Logistics. Listen, folks, I have been stalking Ramp Logistics for some years, okay? When I see a good company, when I see a good person, I stalk them. Don't tell that to the GG, okay? So let's bring Shaun on the stage. What I admire about Ramps Logistics is really how they treat with their people. I see them on social media, so I follow them on LinkedIn, more LinkedIn than any other platform. And it's really about how they treat their people. It's really about seeing them have these Christmas parties for children in the neighborhood. And yes, Nasreen, I definitely agree with that. It's a company that cares about its people. And I see it from what they post. I see it from what their employees post. If your employee is your advocate, if your employee is your ambassador, then you're definitely doing something right. So do we have Shaun with us? Francis? I don't want to hug the stage. Do we have Shaun with us? I know Shaun was here. I hope he didn't have to. There he goes.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Hi, Charlene.
Shaun, thank you so much. I'm elated. So I'm going to hop off stage so that I could give you the full stage, and I am gone. I'll just quickly say that Shaun is the CEO of Rams Logistics, and like I said, a fantastic company who has actually won the Chambers Award this year for internationally known award. So again, you could see what kind of company it is. Shaun, I'm gone. The stage is yours. Thank you so much.
Charlene, thank you so much. And I have to tell you one thing before you go. If I ever become a politician, I'm going to make sure you introduce me, because you are such a hype person. Like I love it. You make any speaker's job a lot easier. Thank you so much. All right. So guys, thank you all very much. It's really a pleasure to be here. And first of all, I want to say congrats to all the other speakers and Meighan. I know that Nicholette left already, but I really enjoyed this session, and I love that concept of the tripod. And I'm going to speak about it a little bit more. Charlene, I don't have a presentation. I thought we were going to have a question and answer session, and that's what I'm hoping happens, because I'm not very good at speaking off the top like this. But I just want to say, when it comes to HR, when I joined the business in 2003, we were over 10 people. Today, we are more than 600 people across a few countries. And when I look at HR to me is really the guardians of the culture in the organization. At Rams, we talk a lot about our resources, and when people think about their profitability and the success of their companies, they really go to their balance sheet. But this is the first year that we are actually trying to measure our culture, and there are a few things around that and how we work around that. But we really see we really see our greatest asset as the culture that we have built in the organization, and we see the HR department and the HR team as the guardians of that culture. I'll start off by saying, I told Charlene before that they are not good or bad employees. They are good people. They are good employees for that type of an organization, and somebody who's a good employee in one organization may not necessarily be a good person in a different organization. I think the role of the CEO is to really define and to guide what type of organization we are building. And then the key is to make sure that we engage with the HR so that HR clearly understands that. And I'll take the example of Trinidad. Different organizations are at different stages. Some, if you look at your strategic planning for 2021, you would say, okay, maybe I'm at the stage where we expect to grow top line revenue by 30-40%. Our main objective is to attract as much people as we can, because we are in an industry that's growing tremendously. And that's kind of like where Rams is at this point in time. Then in other organizations, the idea is that we are not going to grow top line that quickly, but what we want to do is that we want to protect bottom line. How does the culture affect that? How does the type of people affect that? How does HR play a role in that? And I think it's really, really important to understand what type of an organization you are in and what type of a CEO you are working for at that point in time. When it comes to my early engagement with the HR team, one of the things that we really pay a lot of attention to is our recruitment process. And I'm so happy to hear that a lot of you guys are following us on social media. And I tell people, whenever I've been on a few social media conferences and so on, and people are always talking about the metrics, about how you engage with your clients and your customers and so on. For us, our social media, to a very large extent, the content that we put onto our social media is not aimed at customers. It's aimed at our internal employees. The biggest thing for us is for people to feel proud of the organization that they work for. When you go home to your husband or your wife or to your kids, and you go into your community, you want to tell people that you work for this company and that you'll feel proud for working for that company. So I remember about 3 years ago when we were engaging with a social media consultant, and they were speaking about stuff like, you got to be careful about featuring your employees on social media because they may not be there in 6 months' time. And that doesn't work for us. We really don't care about those things, And 95% of the people who leave Rams, they go on to bigger and better things. And that's we are very proud of them. We're very happy to see them go on to bigger and better a lot of times. And they themselves become ambassadors for us when they go into their other jobs. But we really craft a lot of our social media aimed towards our employees and really making people feel proud of the organization that they work for. If you ever go on to us, on our website, we would have put out the fundamental values of the organization. And a part of that is giving back to the community. We always say that we want to improve the quality of life of the people in the communities within which we operate. That's a big part of how we organize, how we operate as an organization. And it becomes a big part of what we put on social media. And because that's the public face of the organization, the way you position your brand, especially on social media, has a direct relation to the type of people that you attract. So you would see, I was telling Charlene earlier on, I live in Cunupia. I am third generation. My dad grew up in Cunupia. I grew up in Cunupia. When the business moved back from Port of Spain back into Cunupia, we were able to attract a certain caliber of people. For those of you who know Trinidad very well, there are a lot of people who are willing to compromise their earnings. People who at a senior point in their career where their mortgage is paid off, their kids have been to school, and what they want more than anything else is satisfaction out of their job. And so we'd have seen some people take a cut in their salary just so that, very senior executives, just because they live in Central and South or East Trinidad, and they don't want to have to go to Port of Spain. And our HR team would have been responsible for crafting the campaign to attract those people. They would have engaged with our social media team. They would have said, how do we target people who are at a certain executive level, living in South and Central Trinidad, as well as East Trinidad, and then push those ads towards those type of people as well. So I think that HR in 2021, if anybody isn't talking about the digital role of HR and how HR integrates into the digital organization, you really have to have a look at that. The other thing I would tell you all is that I've only in my life ever read one HR book, and it's by a guy called Laszlo Bock. It's called Work Rules. So Laszlo Bock was like I guess you would say the chief people officer at Google, and Laszlo is an engineer. And for us at Ramps, we really see HR, we run HR almost like we run an engineering department. It's full of processes, and we are very, very particular about how we do things. In fact, in 2021, at the executive level in charge of HR will be a petroleum geoscientist moving into that role. It's the first time we are actually going to have a non-traditional HR person in that senior HR role. And we're really, really excited. And if you ever get a chance to read that book by Laszlo Bock, it's a for those of you who enjoy engineering, my background is engineering. Ramps is really built on a ton of engineering. It's a really, really great book to read as well. So, Charlene, that's as much of an introduction. I really want to be able to answer some questions because I know a lot of people had some questions. I don't know if we want to stop and go into the chat or if you're going to kind of filter the questions back, Charlene. I see a question from Joel. Can you share how HR team strategically approach the management team to bring new performance engagement tactics to the team, especially with employees looking for... very good question, Joel. Very, very good question. Excellent question. And I'll tell you something. By the way, this is the first time, this is the second time in 6 months that I'm wearing a blazer because I'm working from home since March. So I had to wear one earlier. This is for my first conversation with Charlene. And today as well. And I'll tell you, I think especially in the Trinidad case, what's going to happen post COVID-19 is that COVID-19 is going to accelerate evolution in 1 year, what would have happened in 10 years. The reality of the situation is that a lot of organizations are going to come out of COVID-19 a lot weaker, and you're going to have some organizations who are not going to be able to make it through. But on the flip side, I'll tell you as well that there are going to be some organizations who will come out stronger, and maybe for a period of about 1 to 3 years, the number of participants within the sector you operate in, so we operate in the logistics sector, is actually going to reduce. So you'll have less competition, and you'll probably be able to grow your GPs and so on. And the reason for that is that in the post-COVID world, we strongly believe that those organizations with more sophisticated management systems, and particularly performance management systems, will have a significant advantage over those organizations that do not. And the idea is that those organizations would have always had an advantage pre-COVID-19. But COVID-19 will accelerate the difference if you don't have a sophisticated performance management system. And I'll tell you what's happening right now. And there are a lot of organizations who, when they went out of the office, it's almost as if they put their organization on hold to a certain extent. And they were just waiting for restrictions to be raised and so on for them to go back into the organization and essentially, to a very large extent, go back to doing business the way they were doing business pre-COVID-19. And then there are a ton of organizations who said, you know what? This COVID-19 thing, this work from home thing, how are we going to adjust? What have we learned? What are we going to do to change our management systems? How are we going to change our performance appraisal systems? I always say, you know, there are a lot of managers who manage by the strength of brute personality. They walk around the organization, they know if things are going happening. Hey, what's going on? How are things going? Good. Okay, things are going good. And then, and by the way, that to a large extent, that was me. And nowadays, what we realize is that you don't have that luxury of walking around the organization. So you really have to be driven by KPIs, by performance metrics. You have to have a more disciplined system about how you engage with people. So one of the things that I realized is I was very disengaged from my organization. I was engaged at a very high level, right? And I would use social media, and you know, we have these WhatsApp groups and so on. But when it comes especially to people who report to me directly, I didn't have regular one-on-one meetings. I didn't have the HR team engaging closely with me on those one-on-one meetings to structure those meetings to make sure that we had follow-up action items coming out of it. So really and truly this year, I've really been engaging more directly with my direct reports. And we've been really able to work closely. Before, I remember Meighan spoke about the tripod, you know, and she spoke about the CEO and the COO and the head of HR. We have a tripod at Rampersad we talk about when it comes to everything, and it's called PPT, People, Process, and Technology. And we always say that the organization is built on those three things. The problem is that tripod is not equal, right? When you look at the people part of the people, process, and technology, people always come first. If you don't get your people right, forget about the process and forget about the technology. And then second to the people is the process part of it. If you get your people right, then start working on your processes. And only after you get your people and your process right, then look at the technology. Because all the technology allows you to do is to run processes more efficiently. People think a lot of the time that technology is this big, you know, end it all and it's going to change how you work as an organization, etc. Technology is not going to do that. If you don't get the people and the process right, the technology is just going to make you be even worse at what you don't do badly. Focus on your technology only after you focus on your people and your process. Yes, Charlene?
I'm seeing a question here, Shaun, from Nicole. How do you as CEO ensure that your company's culture stay on track of what you envisioned?
Yeah, so the key is that you have to realize as a CEO that you can't be everything to everybody. I think a lot of the times when I look back at my role in the organization, one of the biggest things was when you try to dilute yourself too much. The first thing you have to say is, what type of an organization do you want to be part of? And to me, the first thing I always say is I want to be able to tell my kids that I work for Rams. I want to be able to show my kids on social media what we do. If I am not proud of the organization, then I can't expect anybody else to be proud of the organization. And being proud of an organization is not just about how much money you make. At the end of the day, you have to make money. You have to run a good team. But really and truly, it really comes down to the impact you make in the communities in which you operate. And that to me is the number one issue. How do we make sure we do that? And I'll give you guys an example of something. I shared this example with Charlene earlier on this week. You know, at Christmas time in Trinidad and Guyana, we do this huge Christmas tree. You know, last year we had almost 1,200 kids from homes across Trinidad and Tobago. And we spend a ton of time and effort planning this out. You know, you know how people would spend time planning out a carnival all-inclusive? That's how we do our Christmas trees. It's like, I mean, you probably have about 30, 40 people spending, you know, I mean, a lot of time. If I check it in hours, it's more than 1,000 hours the organization spends to planning. And I'm not talking for a minute about what we spend in actual dollars, but just think about it. Because what we want to do is that we want to impress these kids. We want them to come in and feel like it's a wow experience. And then we work with customers. So on that day, kids come in and they have. If you think about somebody who lives at a home and they don't have parents and so on, but they come in and they get all these lovely snacks from, you know, from around the world, unlimited food, unlimited pony rides, everything that you could possibly think about. Then Santa Claus comes in on a Christmas truck. Every single child gets a gift. they get to interact with Santa, and it's a huge thing for us. And I'll tell you that
Shaun, you make me feel to be a child again, Shaun.
I think
You
I
make me feel
enjoy
to be
it.
a child
I
again.
enjoy it more than the kids, you know. But this year, Charlene, the biggest impact on COVID-19 is that we can't have that event this year. And honest to God, everybody was a little bit depressed about it because we look forward to it so much. And then we said, okay, we're going to take our entire budget for our corporate events and so on, and we're going to go into this Christmas drive to get 1,000 devices for kids across the country and in Guyana. But even though we did that, everybody was still so disappointed. And we got calls from the homes and so on to ask us what we were doing. And then, you know what, we found money in a budget. And this Saturday, we worked with the fire department, and we are going across the 5 homes. And we still get all our gifts. We're going to get Santa in a fire truck. We're going to deliver Christmas goodies and Santa Claus. Because a lot of times people said that the only one time that the kid gets to see Santa and get something directly from Santa during Christmas is during our event. And I'll tell you, that's not being driven by me. When I talk about the culture in the organization, that's being driven by people in the organization. And I think a lot of times CEOs look at it as something as part of their CSR and giving back to the community. But that's also about building culture in your organization. People get engaged about that. You know, Charlene was saying about people sharing on social media. You know, half of your organization is posting on their Instagram and their Facebook about this event and how they interact with somebody on a horse. You know, it's such a beautiful thing, and it really builds people and brings people together in the organization. So for us, CSR is fundamental to culture. Culture is our greatest asset. HR are the guardians of that culture. Charlene?
Shaun, yeah, thanks so much for that powerful sharing. I need a sip here.
Yeah.
Conversations over coffee with Charlene Pedro. So I'm not seeing any more questions, but there was a comment that Leela Ramsing said she loved that aspect of giving back to community, which is really what you shared about. And I remember from our discussion with our coffee chat, you spoke about making sure that you get the right people on board the bus, who are humble and who have an interest in doing that kind of work. So that is probably why now you have your team being a bit depressed because they can't have their Christmas celebration, but that what drove them to come up with some innovative ideas. So how could we still make it happen for the kids?
Very good. And thank you.
So I mean,
thank you for reminding me about that, Charlene. And I think that's a key part about understanding the organization. So we consider ourselves to be a growth organization. We are obsessed with growing, right? We just opened in Colombia about 2 weeks ago, and we intend to open in 2 more Latin American countries next year, Peru and Chile. So our biggest challenge is attracting top-level talent, right? And I say that because in a lot of organizations, especially in Trinidad today, because of how depressed the economy is, a lot of the times you're just trying to figure out how you could cut back, how you reduce staff, how you do so. And there are different types of HR people who fit organizations better at different stages of the organization. So today, our head of HR, they spend the vast majority of the time trying to figure out how do I attract top-level talent to the organization. And attracting top-level talent doesn't just mean people with experience or people who've been in an organization for a very long time. One of the reasons why we are a fast-growing organization is because we really are a knowledge-based organization. So although we say that RAMS is a logistics organization, in the background, we say to ourselves we are a technology company. You know, about 2 years ago, we partnered with UWI. We hired their top people, their graduates out of their data science and computing programs. We put together an R&D department. And that research and development department is really the engine of RAMS. A lot of what we based our expansion on and everything is digital. It's totally digital. The problem is that when you're in an organization that's growing by double digits every single year, your role is constantly evolving. What you have to learn to continue being relevant in the organization is constant. And not everybody is good at that. There are some people who have been in a job for a long period of time, and they're very good at what they do, and they can continue to maintain an organization. But sometimes they have issues understanding that what I'm doing today is not what I'm going to do tomorrow. There are a lot of people who are not comfortable with change. And I'll tell you, that's the biggest thing that I've learned in the last few years. And so much so that when we talk about culture, I'll tell you, when I have a conversation with one of the people who report to me directly, I know sometimes people tell me, Shaun, you know, I feel like I've been doing the same thing for a month and I start getting uneasy because I feel that I'm being left back somehow. Because when the organization is constantly evolving, constantly growing, people have to have that level of humility to understand that I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. What for me to be relevant tomorrow, I need to be learning something else today. And HR needs to be tuned in to understand where the organization is going and what are the right type of people to staff those positions. Understanding, I think like so many times when I've worked with HR people in the past, they look for the best candidate. And when they say the best candidate, they usually refer to the most qualified candidate. But you really have to, I guess the idea is to, how do you evolve HR to understand what are the most important things? You know, how do you measure ability to be humble and learn quickly? You know, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
As the HR person, you really have to understand where your organization is heading so that you yourself could be relevant.
Shaun, I'm seeing some questions here. I know we don't have much time, and I'm so glad and grateful for you being here. But there's one from Nazrin that asks, what are some of the challenges you have been faced with over the years as you build your empire?
Well,
Building an empire. Let me use the examples. Over the years, building an empire.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, Nazrin, what is the good part about it? I have so much fun. You know, I feel like the luckiest person in the world, honest to God. You know, I tell people that
The happiest man alive.
I do. Marshall is so great, you know. I feel like even if I didn't get paid, I would do my job. Like I feel so much joy and happiness in being able to take a small company. You know, my dad is still the chairman. I feel so happy that my dad is here. You know, and I feel like he's proud of me, and I feel he's proud of where the organization is going, and that gives me a great amount of satisfaction. And I know that the only way I've been able to do that is because of a great team of people. And what I've also been able to see is, you know, is to take people, a lot of people who I think may not have necessarily had that opportunity. You know, we've been able to hire some people who were, you know, going through some very tough times in their life, and they come into an organization that's positive, and they really get this opportunity to shine. And they've been really, really good at what they do. You know, fantastic. On the side about building out the organization, scaling an organization is always it's a tough thing. And I saw Nigel Romano on the call earlier on, and I know he's an answer. And I'm sure you would look at, for you to go from a small organization to a tough organization. As a small organization, you can get through as a leader almost on the strength of your own personality. But as you try to scale the organization out, if you don't focus on the process part and the technology part, it's going to all fall down one day, right? So in order for you to build, everything is built on infrastructure. If you want to scale up, you have to have the right infrastructure that you need to be scaling on. And that infrastructure really is the underlying quality management systems and the processes that are then brought together with technology. But building out a quality management system is not an easy thing. It takes time, and you really have to spend focus on it. So I could tell you that, you know, RAMS is the type of organization where we never say no. If we get an opportunity, we'll always say yes, and then we'll figure it out. Sometimes that makes you work for 20 hours out of a 24-hour day. And if you don't have a clear vision about how you say, okay, today I'm working 20 hours, but I'm going to invest in more people, I'm going to invest in the processes, and then get the technology right so that I can go from 20 to 8 hours, you know, it's not going to work out. And I really want to say one more thing. You know, part of our 2021 strategic planning is to focus on the quality of life of the people who work in RAMS itself. Because I'll tell you, as we've been growing over the last few years, people have been working 12, 16-hour days, right? There have been a lot of people in the organization who have been putting out. And thankfully, we're at a point now where we feel like we have a decent foundation and a decent infrastructure. It's not just about how people do work, it's about what happens outside of work. So me as CEO, I'm focusing on my direct reports about what happens outside of work. Do you have enough time to spend with your family? Do you have enough time to focus on things that bring you joy in your life? You know, I feel so blessed to be working from home for the last 9 months, because I've never spent this amount of time with my kids. It's been fantastic. And I've realized what I've been losing out on my life on. And if I think about people who live in South and Central and East and spend 4 hours of their day in traffic, you know, it's just not a good long-term solution. It's not a good long-term solution. So I feel that the organizations in Trinidad who focus on quality of life, and they put that out there, they'll be able to attract a certain talent that, you know, that didn't focus on their companies before. And, you know, guys, you think about Rams. Rams is a Trinidadian brand. When people think about going to work for companies, they think about going to work for the BPs and the Shells and so on.
Yeah.
So if we want to compete for that level of human resource talent, we have to compete against those brands. How do we distinguish ourselves? How do we differentiate ourselves? How do we focus more on people who really who take a sense of pride in building a Caribbean brand versus just working for a multinational company? How does HR think about that? How do they quantify that? How do they turn that into actionable items and then put it out there to attract those type of people? That's the kind of detail that I think that we expect from our HR team. That's the kind of detail that our team has been talking on. And I'll tell you, our HR team works very closely with our communications team. And of course, that also encompasses social media. Social media has been a fundamental part of how we've grown our brand and how we attract the right people.
Shaun, I mean, you've given us so much to think about. I have some questions in the chat, but I will leave them to connect with you. One is a mentor, one is if you have any vacancies, and understand just by those questions, it tells me of yes, from a business perspective, you can say the brand that you have built as an organization, but somewhere somebody said that they kind of feel this, I don't know if they use the word the soul, but I'm also saying the soul. I could feel the soul of the organization and the pride as you share, and the joy, as you say, you can work without pay. We know when we have found our sweet spot and our joy when we could say something like that, work without pay. So Shaun, I want to thank you so much this morning. I mean, I was taking notes, Shaun. Okay, I was taking notes because you shared such nuggets, gold nuggets. You spoke about having well, first thing you spoke about was the content on social media. If you think everybody's busy putting out valuable content to attract their clients, their customers, you are really focusing inward. Your content on social media is for your people, for your internal customers. And another thing that stuck with me was your people process and your technology, and recognizing that people comes first. Without the people, you can't scale, you can't really go forward. So those are things that stuck with me. Yeah. So that's stuck with me. So Shaun, I want to thank you again. I am so grateful. I mean, fantastic presenters this morning.
Hey, and Charlene, if I could just say, I know there were a lot of stuff in the chat that I didn't get through, but guys, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, and feel free to send a message. I respond to all my messages on LinkedIn.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. And I could say yes, attest, because I connected with Shaun on LinkedIn. Yeah. So yes, please free to connect with him. Fantastic sharing, deep sharing, and like I said, another nuggets that I myself, as a consultant, was able to take away to help me in business. So thank you so much, Shaun.
Okay.
So we're going to move into a quick, because I see it's almost 11. We're going to move into a quick giveaway. Shaun, if you want to exit the stage, feel free. Just take off your camera and your mic. But thank you again. As I always say, what do you think about Shaun's sharing with us this morning, the information? Could we give him some love, please? Well, I'm seeing it there. People already saying awesome. Yeah? Yes, my dear friend from Jamaica said she's now here, and of course she's impressed. Yeah, Randy loved it. Outstanding presentation. Excellent. Very inspiring and visionary. Absolutely great work. Shaun and your team, your family team, as you say, it is a family-grown, homegrown company, and you're competing with internationals, and that's why you won the Chamber's International Award. So we're going to shift gears a bit. This is the end, I would say, of our formal head work, but we did get some heart. That's the thing with our presentations. It's not just going to be your head work. In your presentations, we have people with heart, people who are really putting their soul into their work and that could share their experiences. I always tell people, you're not going to get it Google here. You're not going to get this information on Google, because it's really from people's heart and experiences. What we do have now for you, an experience, is for you to win another prize. So Deanna is going to hit up the chat with another pick. And after that, we have to announce the winner. After that, we have to announce the winner. We'll do so when we are in the networking mode, and we will know who would have won. All right. So there you go. Now I will tell you again, I have, thank God I have a daughter and she can do some math. So I do have the answer here already. So I will say, give a go at it. I'm just going to remind you, although my daughter says I should not need to remind you, but I know primary school has been a long time for some of us. I'm just going to remind you that, thanks, Nashrun, but don't go nowhere. Don't you dare drop off, folks. I'm going to remind you that when we were in primary school, we would use that acronym called BODMAS, BODMAS. And the first person there who will put the answer in the chat, I do have the answer here. The first person to put the answer in the chat will be the winner. So let's go. Come on, guys. Get the brain working again. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Nashrun, what's your answer, Nashrun? And thanks so much for being here. Randy, you're close. Ah, yes, Nashrun, bringing back memories, primary school memories. Remember BODMAS. Rajiv, not thoughts, remember BODMAS. Do you remember BODMAS from school? BODMAS. Yeah, the process of where you have these sort of calculations. So look at your picture carefully. I do have it on my phone, so let me see. I'm hearing some music in the background here. So I want you to look carefully and make sure the angry looking man, what he has in his hand and what he has in his feet. I'm giving you hints here. Okay, Hyacin, that's not it. We gotta keep going. Look at the man's feet. Look at what's in his hand. Come, let's go, BODMAS. When you reach the end. So you calculate your shoes, which end up being 10, giving you a little hint here so we can move it. Shoes are 10, the pair of shoes I should say is 10. You see what my daughter has here. Sorry, Gabriel, that's not it. The man without shoes will obviously be 5 per man. The double cones will be 4 for the double cones. Trying to help you move it along. And for that last line, be careful of what the man is holding in his hand and what he has on in his feet. So I gave you all the numbers. Now all you have to remember is BODMAS. What was the B for in BODMAS? Brackets of division. Yes, Rajiv, you got it. 43. We have a winner in the house. No need to put a question mark, Rajiv. You got it. 43. We have a winner. 43. You have won the prize. I can't remember what this prize was. What was this prize, Rajiv? Dion, was this the, we do have an HR, and Rajiv, I know you're in HR, we do have an HR coaching prize, so that might be good for you. And we also have, so we could choose between the HR coaching, I suppose, and the Christmas box. And seeing that you're overseas, it will be the HR coaching for you. So woohoo, Rajiv, you have just won an HR coaching session from Heart to Heart, which will be done by Julie Turney. She could not be here. She was so sad, but someone has asked her to host an event at the same day. So that is a fantastic prize for you, Rajiv. You are most welcome. Folks, I want to thank you for spending this part with us, for getting up this morning, for logging on. I want to thank you for your contributions in the chat. I want to thank our speakers, our presenters who shared so well this morning and really from their experiences. So that would be Nicholette, Meighan, and of course, Shaun, who we just learned from. So I want to thank you so much for being here. I am so hoping that this morning you had a fantastic time. I am hoping, give me some love up in the chat. How was this morning? Give me 1 word, 2 words, a brief sentence. How was the morning? We're not finished yet, but how was the morning so far? How was the morning? Inspirational. That's our target. Awesome. That's our target. You know, that feedback tells us to keep working, even in the midst of COVID. It's so easy to say that we're not having an event. And don't worry with the hassle of doing it virtual. It really is a challenge, I must tell you, having a virtual event, having an event like this. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for inspiring us by your feedback. You know, I tell people this is what fills our cup. This is what fills my cup quite personally, very personally, so that I am inspired to keep doing what I'm doing. So that's why I need to connect with you people, because you fill me up. So I want to thank you. I want to encourage you to keep going, to understand that you have the information you have within you to make a change as you go back to your organization, and even with your families, you have it all within you. Sometimes in this situation, we can be a little bogged down and it can be a little depressing at times because there's so much happening around us that doesn't really fill us up. But you can really make a difference wherever you go because you have it. I firmly believe this, that everybody, each one of you have been blessed with a gift and how you can touch people and make a difference. And sometimes we don't realize our power. So I hope this morning you have been inspired to tap into your power to make a difference, a positive difference when you go back to your workplace, to hear what you heard today, to try something new, do a little research, connect with new people. Talking about connecting, I want to connect with my people, my team. I have a fantastic team. I wouldn't be here without them. You would have seen Dion in the chat and Nazreen. We are a team together. We knock our heads, you know, in terms of getting ideas and what will do good for you this morning. So really, I want to thank Nazreen and Dion for working as a team with me to get this morning done. I could not have done it without them. So for that, I say thank you so much. And I'm going to celebrate with my... Thank you so much, Nazreen and Dion. You all are the best. Thank you so much. And of course, I want to thank Francis and Dale working behind the scenes. Again, a fantastic team when we come and do events like this. Couldn't have done it without them. Francis has been very accommodating to meet an evening. So we do thank Francis and Dale. That's a team you can't beat. Francis and Dale Wade. And we wouldn't try to beat it. So thank you so much, Francis. So folks, don't go anywhere. We are still on. We still have some music in our networking session. We still have, you need to find out who will win. So Francis, can we get the limousine and move over to our networking session, please?